Okay, let's get started here. Good afternoon, folks. How many of you went to bed really late last night? Great. So this is the last session of the day, and you get this feeling of, you're tired, you're sinking. That's the best time to dive deep into some technical details. So let's start with the Windows Intune deep dive. How many of you attended the keynote sessions and overview session this morning for Windows Intune? Great. So this is a follow-up session to those sessions where we are going to see how Windows Intune can help you perform user-centric management, get into the guts of user-centric management using Windows Intune, and talk about some of the frequently asked questions about how do I use Windows Intune in enterprise. I'm Nilesh Bide. I'm lead program manager on Windows Intune team. Been with Microsoft this is my 10th year, working on Windows Intune since its inception. And with me, I have my partner in crime.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bharatan. I'm a lead program manager with Windows Intune. I've been with Microsoft for over 13 years, and I've been spending time on online management space for over 6 years. Prior to joining Windows Intune, I spent time in Windows Update. So I'm excited to be here.
Great. So let's get started. So the objectives for the session today, we are going to learn how you can accomplish user-centric management using Windows Intune, learn all the gory details about managing users, as well as next step, we are going to see how we can apply user-centric management to management activities like software distribution. We are going to conclude the session with some of the frequently heard questions that we get about how do I use Windows Intune in enterprise? Is it really enterprise ready? You'll get answers to all those questions in this session. At the end of this session, you should walk away with good understanding of how Intune manages consumerization of IT trends and how you can leverage Intune for that today. You should also learn about best practices on using Windows Intune effectively in your enterprise. So for those of you who haven't seen Intune before, this is just a recap slide. Windows Intune is a cloud-based PC and device management solution. It provides a very simple experience for IT pros to manage devices anywhere in the world, from anywhere in the world. So it really enables flexible work styles for both admins as well as end users, where we provide similar web-based experience for end users to self-service their management needs. From the vision perspective, we want to deliver the best-in-class Windows experience, and we want to enable IT admins to embrace the consumerization trends with enterprise-class management. There are a few key terms in this vision. The first one is consumerization trends. So we want to enable people to work from anywhere and be productive. That's the first pillar of enabling flexible work styles. The second pillar is we want to build enterprise-class management. What that means is we cannot ignore the on-premise management solutions in that space. System Center Configuration Manager does a fantastic job of managing PCs on-premise. We want to be complementary to System Center Configuration Manager. And you will see this recurring theme as we go ahead with Windows Intune roadmap. We want to provide value with providing you latest version of Windows, because Windows Enterprise Upgrade Rights is part of Windows Intune offer. So you can always get the best-in-class, secure and reliable client platform from Microsoft. And last but not least, we want to enable delivery of features based on really rapid release cadence. And this is where we have released, this is our third release in 18 months' time. We want to hear feedback from you, incorporate that feedback in the features, and release the next version of Intune, so we can really turn around fast on customer requirements, so that we can address all the changing IT trends that we see in the industry. So from the pre-release perspective, we are heavily focused on managing consumerization of IT trends. What do we mean by that? We want to do user-centric management. We want IT admins to think users first, because this is where problem of managing multiple devices from multiple platforms and vendors becomes scalable from IT admin perspective, because you're not managing devices, but you're managing users who are in control of devices. We want to provide self-service functionality for end users so that they can be productive anywhere in the world. They can get their applications that they need in order to perform their business functions. At the same time, they can contact IT also whenever they need help from IT. This takes the burden of support to a certain degree from IT admin's shoulder and transfers this to IW, which is information worker, so that they can be partner in this consumerization of IT trend. And we want to enable the modern device management, which forms the core of consumerization of IT. When people start bringing their favorite device to work and they want to access corporate data and resources using modern devices. So let's discuss the Windows Intune architecture. This is a very high 30,000 feet view of Windows Intune architecture. This is the last slide before I dive into demos, so please be patient here. The first component that we can see here is Windows Intune service. This is a highly reliable, scalable infrastructure that we have built with the same knowledge that we built Microsoft Update and Windows Update platforms with. So this resides in Microsoft hosted data center. Any machine or device that you want to manage runs a client component. For PCs, we provide a client component. For mobile devices, they are managed through Exchange ActiveSync. Admins can get web-based console access to perform management activities. All they need is internet connection and a browser that supports Silverlight. End users can self-service their needs using information worker portal, self-service portal. This is a HTML5-based portal. They also need internet access to perform self-service activities. With that, we can dive deep into the first demo. It's all about managing users. Managing users forms the pillar of user-centric management. So this is the first step towards managing users in the system. So let's see what options Intune can provide to its customers in order to manage the users. Let me go to the Windows Intune administration console. This is our pre-release administration console. There is a link to Windows Intune account portal. This is the place where all the user management activities can take place for Windows Intune. How many of you have used Office 365 before? Wow, great. So for those who haven't used Office 365, at the end of this demo, you know how to manage users in Office 365 also. So it's a two for a price of one. So it's a great benefit here. So what we are going to do is, I'm going to consider a scenario where I'm an IT admin of Contoso. I have been asked to manage a group of vendors. And I don't want to provision them in Active Directory. If I can manage them separately, that's great. But I want their machines to be secure so that they can access corporate resources. So in this scenario, the first step is to create a vendor user for my company. So let me dive into the first element of this demo, which is managing users. So from Windows Intune account portal, I can navigate to the Manage Users node. I can create a new user. There are two ways to create new users in the system. You can either create one user at a time, which is applicable to the small businesses, or you could also add bulk users using CSV file. I'm going to take the first route here, and I'm going to add a user here called Josh Pointer. I'm sure you must have heard about this user. He's a power user and fits the profile of information worker. I can provide a display name. I can shorten it to Josh P. Username. And I'm going to hit the next. One thing that you need to realize here is whenever I'm going to create a user in Windows Intune account portal, I'm actually creating user in Windows Azure Active Directory. So this information is going to be stored in Windows Azure AD. If I want to manage that user in Windows Intune, then I need to assign a role for that user. So first thing is, if that user is going to be admin, I can assign an admin role. But in this case, I'm just going to go with the default. I'm going to set the location to United States. And as part of managing this user in Windows Intune, I'm going to make this user a member of Windows Intune service. You would do something similar for managing user in Office 365 as well. When you add the user, you need to make it part of Office 365 group. So right now, I can send an email to the user, or as an admin, I can send the email to myself saying, OK, I have added this user, and just hit on click on create user. OK, there is a different user already exists with the same name. So I'm going to backtrack here quickly, and I'm going to change my mistake here. OK, let's go create. Happy thoughts. OK, great. So this is where the user got created in Windows Azure AD with a temporary password, which Josh Pointer can use in order to log in for the first time. And when he logs in for the first time, he can create his permanent password. So this is one way to handle users in Windows Intune. So I click Finish here. Now the next step is this particular user is going to get synchronized into Windows Intune from Windows Azure AD. And then I can make that user part of my user groups, or I can create security groups similarly. I can just show you one more element of this. I can add a new security group. I would say Intune demo 7. And I can add Josh Pointer as a member of this group. And that's it. The user group is created. So for smaller businesses that do not have any AD infrastructure, Windows Azure AD can provide the same benefits of Active Directory in the cloud, which is a great capability to have. And we can integrate that with Windows Intune.
Hey, Nilesh.
Yeah.
So it's great that you're able to manage vendors in this way. But I am an employee of Contoso, and I already have an existing on-premise AD user identity. Is there a way I can bring that into Windows Intune?
Sure. That's a great question. So the question was, if employee has already created Active Directory account on-premise, then what can we do with that? So with Windows Azure AD, we can now synchronize your on-premise AD with Windows Azure AD. And let's see how we can do that. With the Windows Intune account portal, all you need to do is basically follow, this is the 5-step formula to success. We can prepare for the directory synchronization. You can download a tool called a directory sync on your premise and run it on a machine or server that has access to your Active Directory and start syncing this information. So within every 3 hours, this particular Active Directory on-premise will get synced with the cloud with all the changes that are happening on the on-premise AD. So they will be available within 3 hours' time. So in this case, Bharatan, I can go back to the users and see I have already synced your account with Windows Intune.
Oh, this is good.
So you can see this synchronization icon here, which says synchronize with Active Directory. For Josh Pointer, this icon is not there. It's just a user created in Windows Azure Active Directory.
This is good. So what about authentication? Do I need a different password for me to sign in into Intune?
Yes, that's a good point. So when you sync up your account on-premise with Windows Azure AD, the password is managed in Windows Azure AD, and that password is different. So you will have to maintain 2 sets of passwords here.
It's good that, it's great that you're actually doing this for security reasons, but as an end user, I really would like to have a single sign-on experience. Is there a way you can enable that for me?
Would you like fries with that? It's just,
why not?
end users, they keep asking for more and more functionality. But in this case, yes, we can do that. So that's very easy to do with Windows Azure AD. You can just follow the instructions for single sign-on. I have them here. And this is not a 5-step formula. This is a little bit more involved. This is a 9-step formula for success. In this case, you need to host ADFS 2.0 server on your premises, and then go through the steps that you would do for synchronizing your directory with cloud. So once you are done, this is a great benefit of having a single sign-on for end users. So end users can access resources on-premise as well as in the cloud, like Windows Intune, with the same set of credentials, no 2 sets of passwords to remember. It's very, very, very transparent and easy to manage.
That's great. Let me try to complicate the problem further. Okay. Just like a few folks in the audience, I'm also an Office 365 user. Can I get single sign-on benefits across all of these services?
Yes, that's a great question. So you have seen that all these users are getting managed in Windows Azure AD, which is shared by all Microsoft Online services. So you have to create these users only once, and admins don't have to duplicate this effort. So these users and security groups that you create in Windows Azure AD, they're available across all Microsoft Online services, which is a great benefit.
Nice, that's good.
Great. So one last thing that I want to show you here is, now let's go back to the users. So you can see the all users group. I recently added a new user here. So now Josh Pointer the Great has been synced with Windows Intune, so he's available to be managed inside the system. And you can see the new groups also showing up here. If I want to create a new group of users, I'm going to create a group of users under Vegas. And it will be under Vegas. I can browse the security groups that have been synced from your on-premise AD, as well as security groups that have been created inside Windows Azure Active Directory. So here's a security group in Intune Demo 7 that we created. You can add it here and finish. And all the members of the security group, which is managed by Windows Azure AD, are now part of this group, which is managed by Venetian. It will take some, a minute or two to sync the users in this group into this group, but this is how we provide dynamic grouping functionality for users. One last thing that I want to show you is, if I go to the all users, there is a concept of user device affinity. So right now, there are no devices are associated with Josh here. But if I go to the group's unassigned devices, I think one of these devices belongs to Josh. So let me quickly browse through the devices here. Okay. And what I can do is link this device to Josh. So in this case, I can create user device affinity. So now Josh, if I go back here, I think he should be available here. Okay. If I view the properties of this user, there is one device is associated with Josh. So based on this, I can deploy software for all the devices that are being managed by Josh or that belong to Josh. I can deploy policies if it is a mobile device with the pre-release version of Windows Intune. So this basically forms the foundation of user-centric management with Windows Intune. And this is the first feature that really goes a long way in making sure Windows Intune can address enterprise need.
Quick thing. So I also enrolled 2 of my devices, and I see that I'm listed as a user. Can you see my devices?
Okay, so let's find Bharathan here. So there is a quick search available. You can see there are 2 devices that are being managed by Bharathan, or they belong to Bharathan. You can just double click on them and view these devices.
Nice.
Okay. So basically, let's recap what we saw right now and look into some of the details that are involved with Windows Intune user-centric management. So this is the high-level architecture of how identities in the cloud are shared across all Microsoft services. So in this case, you can see multiple services like Office 365 and Intune users. Both are being managed by Windows Azure AD. Microsoft Online Authentication Service, which is a common authentication service that can provide authentication to multiple Microsoft Online services. In case of a small company with no AD infrastructure, you can manage all the users in Windows Azure AD without any need for on-premise infrastructure. So these machines could be non-domain joined machines, but still you can get the benefits of managing them in Active Directory and then performing management actions like policy setting on those devices or deploying software, and etc. For a large company, if you have on-premise AD, you can sync users from on-premise AD into Windows Azure Active Directory. And on top of it, you can provide single sign-on experience if you can roll out optional ADFS 2.0 infrastructure. So to summarize, here are the options that are available to you as customer when you manage user identities in Intune. The first identity is, I would call it cloud identity, because this is cloud-only identity. You master this identity in Windows Azure AD, and all the security groups and user identities and their password, all that information is stored in Windows Azure AD. You can manage them using Windows Intune Account Portal or Office 365 Account Portal. It's a pretty similar experience. The second class of identities, these are synced identities. So you can sync your on-premise AD into Windows Azure AD. In this case, you are going to manage the identities or master the identities on-premise in your Active Directory. You are going to use directory sync to sync those identities into cloud on a periodic basis. Every 3 hours, this delta sync happens, and you can transfer all the changes back into cloud. Passwords, in this case, are managed and created in on-premise AD. So there is no single sign-on or two-factor authentication here. You have the flexibility of still creating cloud-only identity even if you are using DIRSync. The last class of identity, it is a federated identity where you establish trust between on-premise AD and Windows Azure AD. There are some PowerShell commandlets that are available that will help you do that as you set up this integration between on-premise AD and in the cloud AD. You are managing all the identities, security groups, and passwords in on-premise AD. And this is the same password that is going to be used, so you can provide single sign-on experience in this case. One thing to remember is whatever you create, like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Similarly, whatever you create in Windows Azure AD does not flow back down to the on-premise AD. So to recap, Windows Intune leverages the common identity management infrastructure that is Windows Azure AD across Microsoft Online services, so which is a great benefit. You have to manage users only once, and that's it. They are available for all Microsoft Online services. In the enterprise, on-premise AD could be leveraged. All the investments that you have done to maintain and manage users in on-premise AD could still be leveraged. You can selectively manage the users. So suppose if you have synced 10,000 users from on-premise AD into cloud AD, you can select which subset of those users need to be managed with Windows Intune. And you have seen that you can create dynamic security groups in Windows Intune based on the security groups that exist on-premise, as well as you can provide single sign-on experience if you are going to use Windows ADFS. And the last thing is we perform user-centric management when we link devices to users. And you can do this using Windows Intune. You can set the user device affinity as the basis of user-centric management in Windows Intune. So now, Bharatan is going to cover, once you start managing these users, how do we really perform management tasks using Windows Intune?
Thanks, Nilesh. Sure. So Nilesh just walked us through with all of the infrastructure capabilities that have been enabled in Spring pre-release to enable user-centric management. Now let's take a deeper look at how all of this work is integrated into Intune management workflows, and let's use software distribution as an example. So how many of you have, so in October 2011 is when we first introduced a software distribution in Intune. How many of you have tried software distribution? Can I get a show of hands? I see a few hands. So if you have tried software distribution, you know that we have introduced basic software distribution capabilities in our October refresh that included device-centric software distribution. And what essentially we supported was push install. By that, what I mean is IT pros can deploy software for schedule install on managed PCs, and the software gets installed at schedule time on these PCs with little or no intervention from end users. To embrace the consumerization trend, the user-centric management capabilities that we have introduced in Spring pre-release, we have changed the model a little bit by introducing user-centric software distribution. So what it really means is that as an IT pro, I can really think people first or user first when it comes to planning for my software deployments, for all the metrics, rich reporting and monitoring metrics that I use for all my software deployments, license tracking, and all of that is now becoming user-centric model. On top of that, we are now involving end users more in all of these software distribution capabilities by introducing this new self-service portal where an end user can go and look at a list of all the available catalog that IT Pro has made available and really install apps as they need and get productive. We're going to see all of that in a demo. And also the other important thing which I want to highlight is to embrace the consumerization of IT. Since there are more and more modern devices entering enterprises, we have expanded on our software distribution capabilities from just PCs to even distributing software on modern devices, which includes phone as well as tablet type devices. Okay, so before I jump into the demo, let's quickly look at the software distribution process and see what is new in the Spring pre-release. So the very first task that the IT Pro does is publishing. So the publishing concepts are very similar, where the IT Pro brings in an installer binary that he or she has acquired and injects into Intune. The big change that is now that we have made in the Spring pre-release is support for publishing apps for mobile devices, which includes phones and tablet type devices. Once the publishing is done, the next step is deployment. And in this, as I mentioned before, the big change is that in addition to the device-centric software distribution, we are adding user-centric deployment capabilities where IT Pro can deploy software to user groups and make them available to end user. And during install is when the end user plays a big role. So instead of it just being a push install, now end user can go to this nice self-service portal. They can look at the catalog. They can actually install apps on one or more of their enrolled devices, including remote install, which is a pretty cool feature. So they don't really need to be on a primary device to install the app. They can actually install it remotely from anywhere. And there is rich monitoring. So monitoring used to be device-centric. We have added user-centric monitoring capabilities. So as an IT Pro, you can see rich user-centric monitoring capabilities for deployment tracking, for ongoing installs on the IT Pro side. And for the end users, they can also see the status for ongoing install on the self-service portal. Okay, so let's quickly look at the demo. So let's look at the IT Pro side of it. So I'm being an admin for the Contoso company, which Nilesh talked about. And I can go to, as you can see from this intuitive UI, I can go to the software pane and I can look at the manage software. I can already see as an admin a list of pre-published software that I already have. The thing that is new to notice is the fact that if you've already seen software distribution in a current release, we have added, this list includes not just PC apps. Now you can also see mobile apps. So for example, you can see expense approval, which is an iOS app, and there is travel planner, which is an Android app. This is a pretty neat view, and if I want to sort of tailor the view based on, say, if I want to sort by publisher, I can sort by publisher. If I want to sort my app view based on size, I can do that. So all of this nice little user enhancement details we provide. I can also scope my views. If I want to just look at PC software that I've published, I can take a look at that. If I want to look at all the mobile software, I can take a look at all of this, this neat views. Let's go back to the all up list. The other change which I really want to highlight is that for every software, you are now, if you look at at the bottom pane, I'm now seeing user-centric status, which helps me really plan and deploy software. For example, for this travel planner software, which happens to be an iOS app, I can see that there are 3 software for which I've made the software available. 2 users have already attempted download for this application, and 3 download requests are already been handled. So this is the new user-centric tracking that we have provided. Similarly, if I want to look at a PC app, for example, for many of you, I see that you already have used Office 365. So if Office 365 includes Office Pro Plus, depending on the SKU that you buy, you can see how many users have this software available, and if there are users who have installed it, they also get those statuses also get bubbled up here. So that's the managed software in a nutshell. Now let's go to the next step. Let's say I want to add a software and see how it works. Let's do that. So I saw that many of you have used Office 365. So for the people who have used Office 365, how many of you have had to deploy Office 365 client bits to get started? Can I see a show of hands? I see a few hands. So if you have experienced Office 365, one of the primary things that you need to do, depending on the SKU that you buy, you have to install some of these client bits on these PCs to get started. This includes, depending on the SKU you buy, it could be Office Pro Plus. You may have to install Link, Office Sign-In Assistant, and a bunch of updates for you to get started. And all of those bootstrapping you can do with Intune. So I can see that Office Pro Plus is already published. Link 64-bit is published. Let me try to see if I can publish Link 32-bit app. So for this, I click on the Add Software icon, and this is a nice click once WPS app that gets launched. I just need to sign in. I sign in with my credentials. I'll let you sign in. So Nilesh is signed in, so I'll let him sign in. So when I sign in as an admin, I can see this is the intuitive publishing app that comes in. And if I'm a first-time publisher, there's a lot of helpful documents that I can see, which helps me, talks about all the best practices that I need to do. I can deploy to publish software. Since I've already pre-published software, I know all of these, so I'll go past that. Now all I need to do is the binary that I've already acquired, I need to point to that binary. So let me go to the binary. I've copied it locally. Either I can pick it up locally, I can point to a share where the binary resides. But let's go to the place where this binary is already there. I pick up link, which is a 32-bit MSI. I point to that binary and I click next. So I can already, when I'm pointing to the binary, the publishing app already shows me the size of the binary. So it sort of gives me a rough idea as to what the size of the upload is going to look like. If it was a big publishing scenario like Office, which includes a lot of setup files, I could also include additional files and folders, but that is not the case here. So I deselect that and I just move forward. As you can see, the publishing app automatically picks up some of the basic information that is needed to publish the app, which I can customize. So one of the core themes in Intune is simplicity. We try to do all the work for an admin as much as we can. So I just create, I write the publisher, which in this case is Microsoft. This is a 32-bit app, so I can customize the title to say, hey, it's Microsoft Link for 32-bit. And I can provide a helpful URL. So this is a new feature that we have added where for end users who want to self-service their needs, they can actually read more about this app before they decide to install it or not. So let's provide a helpful URL here. I can point them to the Microsoft site for link. And I can also provide categorization for the apps that I publish. So this is link. So let me just provide a category for this app and move forward. And since this is a 32-bit app, I want to add a restriction to say, hey, I want to just make it show up, make it applicable only for 32-bit devices. So I select that as an architecture rule, and if I want, I could select operating system, but I really, I'm not interested in doing that because it is applicable to any operating system. So I can move forward. Now, the important thing to notice is that since it's an MSI, the publishing app automatically picks up the install and detection rules for this app. So as an admin, I really do not need to worry about the details as to what it means for an app to be installed and detected on my managed PCs. All of that work is taken care of by Intune. And if I want, I could customize, but really there's no need for me to customize, and I just click next. I can see this summary before I really do an upload. So I review the app and I'm happy with it, and this is when I upload the app. So when I'm uploading the app, publishing app does a couple of things. The first thing it does is it compresses the binary to the smallest possible footprint before it uploads securely to Azure storage, which is what we use as a backend to store customer published content. And after compression, the next thing that we do is we automatically encrypt every content that gets published at source, and the content is not decrypted even anytime during the transit, and it only gets decrypted on the client after download where it is intended to be installed.
Wait. What's the catch here? You said encryption. I finished my TurboTax return, encrypted my file, and lost the password. Now I can access it. So if you're asking me to manage these passwords or certs, it's going to be a problem for me. So what are you doing here?
That's a valid question. The core principle of Intune is simplicity, and we don't want customers to really worry about the PKI management, cert management when it comes to encryption. So all of that is done by the Intune backend service. So we do automatic encryption based on account-specific cert, and then we securely upload it to Azure. So you don't have to, as a customer, you don't have to worry about any of this. It's automatically taken care of.
Great.
So as you can see, the upload is quite fast. It's already done. And I finished the upload, and I can go back to the management portal, and I can see that this app is already available. So this app actually, the upload is very fast, it's secure, all of it is done very quickly, very simple. And the next step as an admin is, hey, I want to make it available to all my users. So let's see how I can do user-centric targeting for this app. I select this app, I say I want to manage deployment. And as you can notice, now I have a user-centric deployment view. So not only I can deploy the software to device groups, I can now deploy this software to user groups. So this is link, and I want to make it available to all users. So I select all users, and I add that, and I click next. And I want to make it available for every end user in my that I'm managing. So I just make it available for an available install, and I finish it. And that's pretty much it. So that's publishing and deployment, which is user-centric deployment. So that's all I need to do as an admin to quickly inject apps and then deploy to user groups. And by the way, I can do the same thing for mobile apps. I'm sure you have seen that in a previous presentation.
So how soon is the app available to the end users? Do you have to wait a week or something to sync that app down?
That's the beauty of the Intune service. It's as soon as it's deployed, it is available. I'll show you in the end user portal. When I log in as an end user, I can quickly see that app as available.
Okay, great.
So that's the pillar of user-centric management from an IT pro side. I can publish and deploy software. Now let's see what is the end user experience. So as an end user, I want to go and browse for available software and look for it. Let's go. So this is one of the devices that I, as an end user, enrolled. I've already enrolled, and it's associated to me as one of my devices. So Nilesh just showed us that as a user, I had 2 devices enrolled, and this one is one of them. So I can go to, so once I'm enrolled, I actually have this access to Windows Intune portal. So I can go here and I can launch the company portal. So when I go to the company portal, I'm a user who is in Intune. So I know my credentials. I can sign in with my credentials. And as soon as I sign in with my credentials, I see this nice Metro-inspired UI, which is new and Spring pre-release. It's Metro-inspired HTML5 based UI. So any browser which is running, which is HTML5 capable, can be used to access self-service portal. It's a pretty neat, intuitive interface, and it's Metro-based, it's tile-based. I can go to my devices, and I can see that my 2 enrolled devices show up here. And if I want, I can add more devices by just simply clicking on Add a Computer. I can enroll more devices. If I have any mobile devices that are associated to me, I can also see them here. But anyway, I'm interested in apps, so let's quickly go and see what apps I have. As an end user, so I go to this apps model, and I can already see that Microsoft Link, which is a 32-bit app that was deployed by the IT Pro, is already available here. So it's very quick. As soon as it is deployed by the IT Pro, I can quickly see that it's available to me. So now let's say this is a 64-bit device. So I want to install Link, and for this I want to launch Link 64-bit. I can look at the app details. I can see that I have already installed Link 64-bit on one of my PCs yesterday. I wanted to install it, so I already installed and I've had it ready to go. I can see that this is description for the app, and I can see that the file size as well, it's around 70 megs long. So I want to now install this app on this PC.
Wait. So you said you installed 1 copy of Link, which is 70 megabytes yesterday, and now you're going to install 1 more copy. What happens when 500 users in my company start installing 64-bit Link on the same day? You're going to bring my entire network down.
You know, that's a very valid concern. In fact, that was one of the concerns that we heard, one of the primary feedback that we heard from customers, that every redundant download from internet, it's a huge cost for customers, and actually it also slows the download. So we have enabled new peer caching capabilities. Let's cross our fingers and let's see if it works. Let me try to initiate a download, crossing my fingers. I'm hoping that this download is going to work. Let's see. I'm going to hit install. So as you can see, when I hit install, it's a nice intuitive interface. If you have these mobile devices that you have seen, it's the install goes to this animated model where I can see what app is installing on what devices. So it already shows that it's pending install on one of these devices, and very soon, once the install actually, as you can see that the download, the instruction has already been received and the client has already started downloading. Let's quickly see the content. So the download is already happening. Let's see how much time it takes to do the download. It's a 70 meg file, and we are leveraging Venetian internet connection. Let's see how much time it takes.
Any bets here? 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
And just to make sure where the download is coming from, I've launched this perfmon, and I'm going to see where the download is really launching from. As you can see, the download is already finished and the install is happening. And if you really see, I mean, it's very technical, but if you really see the cache, instead of picking the download actually happening from internet, it got picked from the peer cache, which happened to be the PC that I had installed this app on yesterday. So the download did not really happen from the internet. It got picked up from the PC. So that helped, as a customer, that helped me twofold. One is the download is fast because it happened from a local internet connection, local Ethernet connection, and I really saved on bandwidth cost because I avoided duplicate downloads from.
So I'm seeing branch cache here. So how much time did you spend rolling out your branch cache infrastructure, Bharatan?
You know, we are leveraging existing peer caching ability in branch cache. So this is the peer caching distribution API infrastructure that we are leveraging from branch cache, which is available on Windows business SKUs, which includes Pro, Enterprise, or Ultimate SKUs. So there is no additional infrastructure needed. If your PC is a Windows business SKU, this capability is already there for you. And that's the beauty of this model. There's no additional infrastructure required, and it really helps speed up deployments for all Intune clients.
So you're saying that the download did not come from internet, and it's faster because it is getting served from peer cache. So I get both the benefits. I save bandwidth, and the installation experience for my end user is faster?
That is exactly the case.
Great.
This is one of the biggest requests that we had, and this is turned on by default. You don't need to do any work. All of this works automatically. And as you can see, the download finished instantaneously, and install is also complete. And just as a proof, it's picking up from the local cache, and it's not going to the download. So that's peer caching in a nutshell. And if I go back to link, I can already see that I get quick instantaneous reporting. So I go back to link, I can see that the app is already installed, and the same status has been reported back to the IT Pro. And this is a neat way for enabling end user software distribution with peer caching support. So this is all great new capabilities that we've introduced in Spring pre-release. Okay, so that sort of concludes the user-centric software distribution in Spring pre-release. Let's get back to the presentation. So as you can see, like, what we really did was we really saw that a simple user-centric software distribution where, as an IT Pro, all I need is access to internet connection, and I can deploy software to anybody and make it available for any end user. And as an end user, I just need access to a self-service portal, which means I just log into a self-service portal with my credentials, and I can deploy software. And it's user-centric now. All the deployment, monitoring, self-service is all user-centric, and it's very easy to monitor the install through admin console and the self-service portal. And just a word on the backend. The Intune backend is built on the same geo-distributed data centers, which Nilesh already touched upon. So we really offer reliable and highly available data centers for hosting customer-published binaries. We encrypt it at source, and we store it securely in Azure storage. That is what we utilize. And we deliver the content through Azure CDNs in a geo-distributed way, and which is all fault-tolerant, geo-distributed. So we take care of all the privacy and efficient distribution scenarios that every customer is going to face. And the other thing which I want to reiterate is that the customer content is opaque. So you can be confident that any content that you publish is only visible to you as a customer and no one else. So now that you saw all of the user-centric software distribution, let's talk about scale and bandwidth. Now that we have actually released a couple of refreshes of Windows Intune, we have got good feedback from customers, from forums, from direct interactions, from our partner channels and whatnot. And really, there are like some top questions that we have in terms of what does Windows Intune do in enterprise. And some of the top questions that we've been hearing are, how many computers that really Intune supports? Does it really scale to meet my enterprise needs? That's one of the questions that we have heard. The next question is, Intune being a cloud service, how reliable it is? Does it meet my regional privacy standards? Say if I'm a customer in Europe, does it meet my privacy requirements? So that's one of the questions we have heard. And one of the other important questions that we have heard is, customers really want to understand the bandwidth requirements for Windows Intune. What are the bandwidth requirements, and how do I really optimize and save on bandwidth costs? That's one top request that we have heard from customers. So let's look at them one by one. So when it comes to scale, there are really 2 points I want to emphasize. The first thing is the backend scale. the backend infrastructure for Intune is really built on a scale units which is geo-distributed across various regions. That's really built on a logical scale unit model, and each scale unit supports multiple customers. And all we need to do is like bring up an additional scale unit to support multiple customers. So we can really scale to support millions of customers. So that is not a problem. The one other thing we want to emphasize is that for every customer, we have certain performance characteristics which we want to meet when it comes to ID Pro experience. And for that, right now, we are optimized to support managing up to 5,000 devices per account in a performant way. And our goal is to really improve on that in every subsequent release. Right now, it's for scenarios where Intune acts as a complement to System Center Configuration Manager. For example, I mean, it really, this sort of meets enterprise needs. But as I said, we are going to be improving on that and making sure that we really scale to meet bigger enterprise needs. Let's talk about reliability and privacy. I talked about Intune data centers being geo-distributed in multiple places. We have data center presence in North America. We have data center presence in Europe and APAC. And in each region, we have a primary data center and a backup data center which we can bring up at a moment's notice. And we have financially backed SLAs. So that means we actually guarantee customer credit if we don't meet the SLA requirement of 999 availability. So we really meet the real benchmark goals when it comes to being a highly available cloud service. And when it comes to privacy requirements, we also meet the privacy standards that comes along with every online service these days. For example, if you are a European customer and you want to ensure that your data resides in Europe, we make sure that when you sign up and we specify that we are a customer in Europe, we store your customer data in our management scale units in European data centers. So those are the details that we take care of right at the outset, and we make sure that we meet those privacy needs. Let's discuss bandwidth. So we already touched upon that previously. This is one of the overriding and very important question, frankly, as to what are the bandwidth requirements when it comes to Intune being a cloud service. Frankly, there are many scenarios, right from deployment to endpoint protection when it comes to getting definition updates, to Patch Tuesday scenarios where twice a month there are lots of security updates that are being downloaded on all the managed PCs and devices. There are Patch Tuesday scenarios, and there are a bunch of scenarios which requires software to be downloaded. So all of this, really, it depends on every client when it comes to the bandwidth needs. It depends on whether the client is a newly enrolled client or it requires Patch Tuesday updates or what kind of software it really needs to download and applicable. So all of these are the parameters that really determine the footprint of download required for each client. But based on research that we have done in our internal labs, typical bandwidth usage is quite low, which it's quite reasonable. I'll come to the details. But you should, as a customer, you should really plan for some of these high intensive scenarios. Like if you want to really roll out multiple new devices and enroll, it's like a 100 meg download for every new enrollment. So you need to really plan for those scenarios. Or if you want to say roll out Office Professional Plus as part of your Office 365 deployment scenarios, or you want to enroll a service pack. So all of these high intensive scenarios, one-off scenarios, they really need to plan for. But outside of that, the requirements are close to around 5 to 5.5 megs, depending on the kind of operating system you're running, whether it's Windows 7 or Vista or XP based operating system. So it's 5 megs, and most of the bandwidth, daily bandwidth needs are because of the endpoint definition updates that we download thrice a week on a daily basis. And there are certain ways you can actually, the best practices you can follow as a customer to really cut down on your bandwidth needs. The first thing is a policy that we have enabled in our October refresh that you can use to really control congestion, network congestion control. So what you can do is you can define a policy to say, hey, I don't want any Intune downloads to happen during business hours, because that is where most of my productivity happens. So you can actually create a policy to say, to really throttle internet downloads to even as close to 0, say kbps, and say that from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I don't want any Intune downloads happening, and I want all Intune downloads to happen only outside of business hours. So that's one policy you can configure to do congestion control. And if you have the second thing that you can do is if you have any on-premise infrastructure. For example, if you're an enterprise who already has, say, caching web proxy servers like Microsoft Threat Management Gateways or ISA proxy, or even an open source proxy server like Squid, you just have to throttle a few knobs like caching. You just have to configure a few knobs and get that going, and you can really achieve very high caching for all your internet downloads. And we have sort of tested that in our labs, and that's one practice that you adopt. And the last thing is peer caching that we have introduced, and which is new in the Spring pre-release, and that requires absolutely no additional infrastructure. All you need is your PCs to be in Windows 7 business queues or later, and you get this rich caching functionality. So let me quickly cover the peer caching functionality. Just go through the details. We already saw in the demo. It really, this peer caching functionality is new in Spring pre-release, and it minimizes the use of internet-based distribution for all your updates and software distribution binaries. I want to re-emphasize that there is no additional infrastructure that is required. All you need is, it's built on the peer distribution platform, which is what is powering branch cache as well. So all you need is Windows 7 Pro, Enterprise, or Ultimate SKU. And you, by the way, you get that when you subscribe to Windows Intune, because you get the latest and greatest edition of Windows Enterprise that you can install on all your managed PCs. The content is very intelligent. It's intelligently optimized. It's network aware, so you only download content from peers which are in the same subnet, and there is established trust between the computers which are acting as peer source. So all of the security and trust is automatically taken care of. And you can just get started. As soon as you sign up for Spring, for this release and start doing content distribution, you can already leverage benefits and see the benefits. So that's what the Intune, that was what the customer feedback in a nutshell, and how we really addressed in the pre-release. And this is the core of all of the rapid release rhythm that we want to adopt. We want to hear you all in terms of the feedback that we receive, and we really want to translate that to rich feature set and really address customer feedback. Over to you, Nilesh.
Right. So as Bharathan showed you, we have improved a lot of functionality in the Spring pre-release. You can handle consumerization of IT trends today with Windows Intune pre-release. The foundation for that is user management, and we are leveraging Windows Azure AD as the foundation of user management. This is the foundation that will be used across all Microsoft Online services. So you get a great benefit of managing users at one central cloud AD infrastructure and using it across all Microsoft services. Windows Intune is highly scalable, reliable service that maintains privacy requirements. It's really enterprise class service today. And with the enhancements that we have done in order to optimize the internet bandwidth usage, it's a really great solution for your enterprise. And last but not the least, rapid release cycle. We want to hear feedback from you and take into account in our planning for next releases. Since this is our third release in last 18 months, you can see how fast we are running. We can always respond back with new cool features and new requirements that will solve IT admin's pain points very fast. So that's the last takeaway. So with that, since you have spent time listening to us, we would like to invite you all to a celebration here as we are launching our pre-release just after this presentation. The details are here. Please join us in celebrating the pre-release. And if you have questions, the entire product team will be available there. You can ask your questions, concerns, and have meaningful discussions there. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, except for the feedback that we will get here. So please give your feedback to us so that we can improve next time and tell us how we did. Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
So we'll open up for questions. So if you have any questions, please stick around. We have 10, 15 minutes for questions.